Hey, and welcome to HRS 5200, Assistive Technology in Seating and Mobility. I'm your instructor, Carmen DeGiovane. Well, we're moving on to Module 5, Standardized Measures, very important, and Postural Support for Hands-Free Sitters. I'll get into that in a little bit. But first, let's go back to Module 4. We talked about the mobility assessment process. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was very prescriptive, but I hope it gave you an idea of the algorithm that you need to go through when you're evaluating somebody, whether you're evaluating them from an engineering standpoint, a clinician standpoint, or a supplier standpoint. We're all evaluating the individual and the technology and the environment to get a sense of how they're all going to work together. The mobility assessment complemented what we learned in Module 1. So go back to Module 1, think about what you learned there, and bring that into Module 4. And you'll see, hopefully, that the stuff that you learned in Module 4 is the foundation for what we're going to talk about in Modules 5, 6, and 7. Yep, all three modules. So those three modules will come together. You had the learning activities, we had the readings, were the learning activities, and the assignments were, we had a quiz, seating and mobility service delivery, and the assessment process quiz. And then, of course, we had the video case study, working on a video case study. So now we're moving on to Module 5, standardized measures and postural supports for hands-free sitters. So starting off with standardized measures, we're talking about how do you use those tools that I talked about way back in Module 1, yardsticks, tape measures, goniometers, stopwatches, things like that. How do you use that in clinical practice or in seating mobility practice? And then we're going to talk about the postural supports that you need to put in place for hands-free sitters. So now we're talking about the seating system and what do we need to have in place for hands-free sitters. I want to reintroduce the measurement tools. I already talked about that for Module 1. The ones that may be of most use for you actually are a mirror and a camera. So you can kind of demonstrate on your own what is it like to be a hands-free sitter and see what that means. Emulate that yourself or have somebody else emulate it and observe them in what they're doing. And I provided some links to videos online in the learning activities that will help you out in better understanding what does it mean for somebody to be a hands-free sitter. The last thing, just in this intro part, is I also provided a link to an Instructable on how to make your own goniometer. So if you want to make your own goniometer, there's a link to an Instructable on how to do that. So the learning activities for Module 5 include 2 chapters. Chapter 3, Postural Support and Pressure Management Considerations for Hands-Free Sitters. And then Chapter 6, Standardized Measures of the Person, Seating System, and Wheelchair. Chapter 6 may feel a little technical and engineering-like, but it provides us the language that we need to communicate with suppliers, that we need to communicate between suppliers, consumers, manufacturers, and clinicians, so that we identify the right size of equipment when we're making recommendations. Because there's nothing worse than having a wheelchair that's too long or a seat cushion that's too wide in providing seating and mobility solutions. I provided 4 videos for you to take a look at, or 4 video pages. The first one is the anatomy of a wheelchair, specifically looking at the seat cushion. You'll need that for the quiz. That's new. The second one is the seating balance and posture. That's a review from a previous module. There's a video demo of the AT Center walkthrough on Assistive Technology. That's from just a refresher from HRS 5100. And then there's 3 case examples. I only need to look at the hands-free sitter example in that page, and specifically focusing on the seating balance section of the video. And these are videos that we have available to us through the library. In terms of assignments, we have the quiz, the anatomy of a seat cushion. So just make sure you get up to speed. We're talking about Bloom's taxonomies. It's just, can you define and identify the different parts of a seat cushion? And then we're going to have our first tech eval discussion. And I'm doing something a little bit different with the tech eval discussion than we did in HRS 5100. I provided you with a case report on this fictitious individual, Sheffield, who has a T4 spinal cord injury. You're going to want to choose a seat cushion and back support that would work for him. And don't select the same one that I talk about in the case report. So pick something different. There's a lot of options out there. I provided a list of manufacturers that you can go to and look up if you want to get an idea of the different seat cushions and back supports that are out there. Once you're done picking it and picking the seating system and providing a justification, I want you to take a look at the list of 15 criteria that I provide you on how you can evaluate assistive technology. This is from an article by Batavia and Hammer that was actually written back in the 1990s but still applies today. Pick 3 of those criteria and evaluate the seat cushion and back support that you recommend, the seating system that you recommend based on those 3 criteria. Now they're listed in order from 1 to 15. Don't just go in and pick 1, 2, and 3. Go in and pick 1, 5, and 15, or 2, and 8, and 13. Mix it up a little bit so we have some variety. And then you're also going to respond to 2 peers, but this time taking on the role of a third-party payer, a supplier, a manufacturer, or a consumer with a potential counter-argument to your justification, or to their justification. So you want to take on the role of somebody else and think, this is kind of getting into the careers thing again. What is it like to be in those positions as an assistive technology professional? And then the grad students, you've got this added component. So you have to do the first part, but then you also have this added component of providing a rebuttal. And it's really to kind of get you thinking a little bit more about what people are putting in the discussion posts. And so you want to rebut their justification or their counter argument, that they took, or you want to concede it and say, yeah, you're right, and this is why I think you're right, and how you might overcome the problem that your peer has identified. Okay, wrapping up, cool AT for seating and mobility. Well, of course, the International Seating Symposium occurred last Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, a huge success. One of the things that came out of it was I learned about some new fact sheets that were created by the Wheelchair and Cushion Standards Group. Most people, when they think of international standards or national standards, these are things like ANSI, RESNA has standards, ISO. They think that they're very technical. But what these standards groups have started doing are creating layperson fact sheets. And layperson could be a clinician or a consumer. And so I recommend checking them out. I'll provide a link, but it's wheelchairstandards.pitt.edu. Jobs in assistive technology. So I've gotten some questions about jobs in assistive technology. And so I just want to let you know that just for examples in the seating mobility world, because that's what this class is about, National Seating and Mobility currently has some job openings for technicians, and New Motion has job openings for technicians. So that can be something that you might want to, that I figure you might want to, or might be able to do while a student prior to graduating. So I'll provide links, but you can just look up those 2 companies on Indeed.com if you want to. And then there was an interesting article in the New York Times recently. The title of the article is, "I Wanted That Self-Reliance Back, Disabled Hikers Forge a New Path." And actually it had a lot of components of what we're talking about in this class and in HRS 5450. So I recommend taking it out. It's an easy read, but as you're reading through it, think about the stuff that we're talking about in this course and how it applies specifically to wheel mobility in an outdoor setting or in a hiking setting. And to wrap up, I've got to say, go Bengals. I hope by this time next week, the Cincinnati Bengals will have won the Super Bowl. We're hoping that they've got it this year. Joe Burrow is doing a great job of leading the team. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I did update my calendars availability on Carmen Canvas on the calendar app, I guess you will. So you can sign up for office hours through that. The one thing is, if you sign up on a Monday or a Tuesday, so right before, the day before the appointment, send me an email through Carmen Canvas so that I'm aware that you did that. I check them every Monday morning, but I don't always check them then again in the afternoon. Have a great week and keep an eye out for seating and wheel mobility technologies. Thanks.